A win against the Northwest Oranges saw us climb to 13 points above the drop zone, with 3 goals scored and a bumper crowd heading home in delight. All sunshine and roses in the garden then? Maybe, maybe not. Number one goal has always been to stay up this season, so the main question remains, are we nearly there yet? Joining us today on the Tilehurst End Podcast is, of course, myself. I'm standing in as a host because everyone else has gone on holiday, but also football mastermind, Football League legend. How else can we describe him? All-round good egg, Adam Jones. How are you, mate?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm delighted with that intro, I have to say. Football League mastermind. Not sure about that, and I'm not sure about Northwest Oranges either, or whatever you call Blackpool, but we'll go along with it. But no, as I said, I mean, the weekend, it's always better, isn't it, when your team wins? So, no, I'm absolutely delighted with the victory, and because of that, I can't really have too many complaints.
I like to mix up a bit. It's boring if you keep saying like Blackpool this, Blackpool that. So I thought, Northwest Oranges, why not? But yeah, it's an acquired taste, put it that way. Right, well, we're going to get into the recap of what is essentially, a vital 3 points. Before we do that, massive thanks to our sponsors as always, who support us in lots of different ways. If you like what we do, then by all means leave us a tip online. All the details are on the website and through the podcast and everything else. So thank you for all your support. If you do that, because it allows us to bring you premium quality content just like this today. So let's get straight into the recap from a much needed win against Blackpool.
Come rain or shine, it's time to relive the latest match action with the recap.
Right, Adam, we needed it massively. I'll kind of run through some key stats sort of later on in the show, about the game, but also generally as the season's gone on. Second win of 2023, obviously excluding the win in the cup against Watford. Are we playoff bound then?
I don't think so, to be honest with you. I think, as Paul Ince has said multiple times, I know that it's going to get on a lot of people's nerves, but the goal is always going to be 50 points, and then we build from there. And if we have that common goal, then that gives us something to aim for. And the fact that we're on, I think it's 44 now, is very promising. But for me, I think there's too many teams to get past in terms of playoffs. And I think, there's one word between those who get the top 6 and those who fall short, and that's consistency. And unfortunately, we haven't got that. But to be fair to us, we haven't needed to be consistent this season. We just needed to get to the 50 points. And, we're currently on track to do so. So, again, I can't really have too many kind of complaints about that, really. But, yeah, I don't think we're playoff bound at all. I think we'll finish probably lower mid-table. But a lot of us fans would have taken that at the start of the season. So, yeah, I think we're getting perhaps a little bit ahead of ourselves if we're saying playoffs. But, I think perhaps hopefully we'll do just about enough to stay in the division.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you. There was a few people sort of getting a bit carried away with looking up the table rather than obviously down. And, I appreciate and respect the optimism to a point, but, playoffs is a little bit far-fetched at this stage. And, realistically, as I said, we've come into the new year, form hasn't been great, performances haven't been great, style of play, if there is one, has been pretty poor all around. So, yeah, look, it for me, it was a vital 3 points that gives us a bit more of a cushion kind of leading into what is essentially going to be March Madness for us, because we're playing some difficult teams, which we'll talk about later on. I mean, in terms of the win, we're coming to the end of a block of games that you would have said, minimum 6 points, which we've got. We beat Rotherham, obviously lost to Cardiff in that, quite frankly, disgusting game, and obviously beat Blackpool yesterday. So from that point of view, for me, we've done the bare minimum. Do you think, in terms of the way that we set up yesterday, that was a kind of a departure from what we've seen in the last few games? Do you think that we were kind of a lot more, shall we say, front-footed than we have been? And ultimately, do you think that, and here's the key question, Adam, if we were playing better opposition, do you think we still would have come out on top?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it, really? I mean, in terms of Blackpool, they had quite a few chances early on. And I think against a better side, we would have gone behind. But, thank God, Mick McCarthy's men couldn't finish their dinner. Quite frankly, they were very, very poor in front of goal in terms of their finishing. So that's one kind of positive for us, and perhaps a negative as well, because if there'd been a better team, I think we would have found ourselves behind, as I was saying. In terms of our approach, I think we were kind of on the front foot. I think it's just because of a mix of factors. I think one, because of Blackpool were quite poor on the day, and that probably gave us the confidence to come forward at home. I think the fact that we were at home as well perhaps played a part in us perhaps going forward a little bit more than we otherwise would. I don't think the formation played a huge part. I think there's been a kind of a little bit of a misconception, really, since Paul Ince has come in. I mean, a lot of people think that a back five is a negative, and of course, having a back four allows us to get the player forward, and perhaps that makes a little bit of a difference. But you can still be 100% kind of attacking without the need to have, without the need to have a back four. You can easily have a back three and still attack, with the wing backs. As Nottingham Forest showed last season when they got promoted. So I'm not sure that the formation played too much of a part in that, but I think he did get the system right yesterday. I was a little bit hesitant about McIntyre against Bowler. I think Bowler's a very good player, and he showed that at times yesterday. But no, I think the system was right. I definitely persist with it. I mean, I like the back three, but I think I'd go forward perhaps with a back four. I think maybe dependent on the opposition. But yeah, I was very pleased with our approach. I think that the players that we selected as well helped our cause. I think Mamadou Loum and his passing isn't great really, and that sets the tone for the rest of the team. So having him out of the starting 11 is can only be a positive really. For this kind of game with the floor and passing. Obviously, Cassidy, who I thought did very well. He proved his worth. And obviously having Hendrick and Ince there in the middle, and I liked having kind of Ince in a little bit of a deeper role, kind of taking kind of control of the game and kind of controlling the tempo, and also having the wingers there, I think paid dividends for us. I think Meite was absolutely superb down that right hand side. Had the left back completely on toast. I think it was Garbutt. And gave him an absolute nightmare, and it's just a shame that he hasn't been involved in other games recently. But no, I mean, I was very pleased with yesterday. And to be fair to Ince, I've criticised him a lot recently. But he did get some things right yesterday, and I've got to admit that.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one about Meite, as you mentioned, because this is a player that's been benched for the last 5 out of 6 games. Obviously, started yesterday for the first time in a long time, really. And he was a difference maker. You can obviously look at Thomas Jr. in terms of his contribution because he was excellent yesterday. But Meite, having him on the right wing, as we all know as Reading fans, can really be the difference maker in these games. And he said himself, if I'm not running at defenders, if I'm not taking people on, if I'm not chasing balls down, then you're not really seeing the real me. And I think having someone like him back in the side, and we're very good as Reading fans at going, oh yeah, well, when we get this player back, we're going to do this, and when this player's come in or whatever, then we're going to be much better. But Meite for me is always one of those players, and it sounds obvious, but when he's played in the right position, he really is a game changer for us, and he's been sort of consistently okay and better than okay in some respects over the last few seasons. So I was really, really pleased with him, really. In terms of how we were, I mean, I'm going to pick up a couple of quotes later on, but it was almost a game of two halves, wasn't it? First half, we were kind of on the front foot, or rather on the front foot, a lot more than we'd been previously. But second half, we just kind of sat back a little bit, didn't we? What for you in that second half? Apart from the goals, what was the key thing for you in terms of us seeing out that win and actually getting the 3 points?
I just think weathering that storm kind of in the early stages of the second half. I know that we went on the back foot and could have easily found ourselves at 1-1, but the fact that we weathered that storm was a real positive for us. I know we've been notorious really at times in recent seasons of starting the second half poorly, and it's just good, I think, that we managed to kind of hold on, and then we kind of managed to build from there, got a little bit of a break, and then one long ball forward, hook ball forward, and Yaku Meite's on it with his pace and with his strength as well, and obviously getting the penalty. So I think for me, kind of making sure that we weathered that storm and didn't concede, I think was a big plus for us. I think there was a lot of nervousness going into the game about how Naby Sarr and Dan would perform perhaps together in a back four. I know they've both been criticised in recent times. I think that actually Sarr has been quite good in recent games in terms of being in the middle of the back three. Obviously, he was in a back four yesterday, and I thought that he had a mixed game. I think Dan also had a little bit of a mixed game. There was one kind of nervy moment, but those two managed to pick up a clean sheet, and that's all that mattered really at the end of the day, because we managed to get forward and get. Well, actually didn't get ourselves a clean sheet, but nearly did get ourselves a clean sheet, and the fact that we managed to get ourselves forward and get 3 goals. It was important that we did remain solid for the vast majority of the game. I was a little bit disappointed, obviously, with the consolation. I think the defenders were as well, but the game was safe by then, and I'm just glad that we conceded at the end rather than at the very start. I think we kind of defended quite well in the early stage of that second half. Obviously, being on the back foot wasn't ideal, but we managed to get through it in the end, and only conceding 1 goal in the end. That's the most important stat.
I mean, I said in the column, picking up on Dan and Sarr there, I think they did just about enough in that game, really, in terms of what they were faced with, a team that really could still be playing now and wouldn't have many more shots on target. So, they just about got by. I think the concern is obviously when we go to Borough on Saturday and you choose a back four, which I would say is probably worthwhile doing, moving forward, maybe not on Saturday, but generally as a system, it allows us a little bit more creative freedom moving forward. But when they're up against, better strikers than they had yesterday, they're really going to struggle. At times they got turning circle of an artillery, really. So it's very, very difficult to have a lot of confidence in those two. I'm reading direct quotes here from the Football League paper that's come out today, and these are from Ince after the game. I know he did a lot of different presses, but this is what he said to these guys. In the second half, 1-0 is never a good score for us. We've done it before, 1-0 up, but we're sitting deep and then sitting deeper. How can you go, and this is a key point, Adam, how can you go from the first 45 minutes when you're playing some good stuff to just like defending deep and can't get hold of the ball? ? So from a kind of stepping away from the game slightly, it's a concern that he's asking those questions of anyone except himself, really, because he sets the team up. So my concern in the first period of the second half was like, what's he said to him? What has changed from the first half where we did look a lot more lively than we have been? What was the concern there about not trying to see the game out and really going for it quicker than, what was it, the 70th minute when Carroll converted that penalty?
Yes, it's a very, very strange one. I do like people taking collective responsibility, so the players as well as the manager. But the fact is, Paul Ince has had a year to put his stamp on the team, and why is he asking us, as you mentioned, why is he asking us that question? He should be the one that's providing the answers, really, along with his coaching staff. So that's a little bit of a concern for me. But yeah, we do need to kind of get ourselves out of that habit, because perhaps some of his quotes as well perhaps shows that he's contributing to it. I think it was either before the Cardiff game. I think it was before the Cardiff game, where he said, we need to stay in the game. Well, why don't we take the game to them? They had a terrible home record, and we're not underestimating Cardiff, but we've got to have confidence in ourselves. We've got to have confidence in our own ability. And some of his quotes and some of his comments are just, nothing short of bizarre, really. So it's a strange one. We need to see an improvement in that area before the end of the season if he's to fully convince Mark Bowen that he's perhaps the man to take us forward. Obviously, I think we're both kind of similar in the fact that we're not convinced about Ince. And it's a very strange one because we've done a lot better than we expected in terms of points. But yeah, I think his comments are not helping, and perhaps his tactics as well. So it's a strange one. We've just got to wait and see between now and the end of the season whether he's learned his lessons and whether he stops repeating the same mistakes, to be honest with you, because there have been mistakes where we've there have been times where we've sat back, especially in the Sunderland, both the Sunderland and the Cardiff games, where both teams were arguably there for the taking, and we could have perhaps nicked a goal and nicked a win. So yeah, he does need to take a little bit of responsibility as well, Ince.
We'll come back to Ince in a bit. I just want to kind of round up the Blackpool game, really. Our very own Bobbins, if you haven't read his articles, he does, they're called 5 things. He does them after every game. Very, very good, actually. Fair play to him, if he's listening. And he kind of came out with 3 points that I want to pick up on. Movement, menace, composure. Now, if you're watching that game and you're not looking at the stats, which I'll read out in a minute, I think we did all those things to a point. We had some menace. We were going after him in some respects. We had a lot more movement, particularly in the final third of the pitch. And as you said earlier, Adam, we had composure to kind of weather the storm a little bit, not panic, and then obviously get the 2 goals to really seal the deal. On the stats, if you've not watched that game, say you're a Blackpool fan, you've not watched it, you haven't gone to the game, and you're looking at this afterwards, right? These are the key points. Possession. We had 43%. They had 57%. We had 8 shots in total. They had 14. We had 5 on target. They had 4 on target. But this for me is the key one, right? We had 300 complete passes. They had 410. So this is not just a one-off for us. This is the story of the season. And I think a lot of people now are starting to talk about or really focus on the players that we've got. And kind of what Ince has done with us. The final question I want to ask you really about the game is, do you think, based on the stats I've just read out and just the balance of the game in general, do you think we got lucky?
To an extent. My washing machine's just going off, so please do bear with that. In terms of did we get lucky? I think to an extent, yes. I think the Seasiders, in terms of their finishing, if there were better finishers on the pitch, I think they'd probably be ahead. It would be a much closer game. But you make your own luck as well. And I think we had a lot more substance possession. Blackpool popped the ball about nicely at times, but they didn't do enough with it in the end. And that's the bottom line. The only stat that matters at the end of the day, arguably, it is the scoreline. We can talk about possession and all that, but it's all about the score, and we got the 3 points, and that was absolutely vital for us. You look at it on the other hand, and you're saying we've had 43% possession against the side that are in the relegation zone. What are we going to be like against Sheffield United, in a week or two's time? And it is a little bit of a concern. I want us to dominate games. I don't want us to play Russell Martin, Swansea City style football, but I do want us to completely dominate games. And you could tell even during the game, we were on the back foot a little bit. We were happy to sit behind the ball at times. That was pretty apparent, throughout the game. But yeah, getting forward, we were a lot better. But yeah, as long as we see kind of small steps of improvement between now and the end of the season, I'll be happy. Of course, I'm not sure about Ince, as we both touched on, but we've done okay on Saturday and got 3 points. So in terms of luck, I think you make your own luck, and I think Blackpool at the end of the day just weren't clinical enough, and we did well enough to take our chances. We capitalised on a good moment at 2-0 to make it 3-0. In such a short space of time. Would I say we're lucky? Not too lucky, because we showed a little bit more quality in front of goal, on the day.
I think you make some good points there. They were pretty wasteful, to have 14 shots, only 4 on target, obviously scored 1, but that's a terrible conversion rate for them in that 90 minutes, really. Moving away from Blackpool, the context of the season, the next couple of games, we've got Borough, we've got Sheffield United, we've got Millwall, we've got Blackburn. All those clubs, maybe bar Sheffield United, obviously I know they won yesterday, but they're kind of in form and kind of fighting at the top end of the table. So feasibly, we could then go 4 games without a win or any points particularly. That does make it very, very difficult then to be positive about, not getting dragged into the relegation zone. I personally still think we'll do all right. I don't see one of those teams, and that's all it's going to take, kind of catching us at the moment in terms of that 13-point cushion that we're kind of currently enjoying. These stats are kind of, these are facts. This is not my opinion. This is kind of posted without comment stuff. As I said earlier, we've won 2 games in the league this calendar year. That's Blackpool and Rotherham. Obviously, we beat Watford in the cup, but take that out, we've won 2 league games in 2023, and the next time we play, we're into March. We've got 44 points, 14th in the league at the moment until the games are played, sort of to round off the weekend today and tomorrow. We're 13 points off the relegation zone. We've kind of 15th in the form table over the last 6 games. We've got 7 points from the last 6, which is what it is. And we've lost 12 away games this season, and we've conceded 30 goals. In the context of the season and kind of what all of our expectations were realistically at the start of this season, do you think that Ince has done his job? And do you think he's done it well enough based on where we are as a club right now?
It's a very difficult one, isn't it? Because I've been thinking for some time now. I mean, in terms of taking us forward kind of for the long term, I'm not sure about Ince taking us forward for the long term. I maintain that. I mean, I stand by that. And arguably, I would have got rid of him after the Cardiff game because I was just so enraged about it. But you've got to say that he has arguably done his job in terms of getting us to the points that we need at the moment. Obviously, there's still a way to go, so he hasn't completely done his job yet. He still needs to get us that 50 points, and then secures us mathematical safety, and then we'll have a kind of rethink about it. But for me, our performances just haven't been up to scratch, a lot of them. And I find it really hard to say because I don't want to put a dampener on yesterday. I was absolutely buzzing after the game. 3 points always makes a weekend better, as I was saying at the start. But just some of the performances just haven't been great. I mean, a lot of people have said, what about the embargo and the fact that we've got a limited squad? And I appreciate that. I appreciate that we have got a limited squad, but I feel like we could be getting a bit more out of them in terms of getting Nesta Guinness-Walker up the left, getting Aziz up the left as well, and kind of, I don't know, generating some sort of excitement as well, and kind of away from home, actually take the game to the opposition. You could look at the Paul Ince debate from two sides. It's no wonder really that the debate is so divided about Ince on social media. There's a lot of people that are unhappy and a lot of people that are happy, and you can see both sides. But yeah, in terms of long term, I'm not 100% sure. I mean, in terms of him taking us to the summer, maybe that'll be a good idea. But beyond then, I'm not 100% convinced. But we'll see what happens between now and the end of the season. If we somehow improve quite vastly, then I'm sure that there will be a rethink among some fans. But yeah, it's a very difficult question to answer.
Well, that's a good job we don't have to answer it, isn't it? I mean, there is a growing divide here, and people are saying, look, we need to stay up, and I completely respect that. I do, I really do. But when he's coming out with comments like he did yesterday, and obviously I read the ones from the paper earlier, but the comment about Meite being a right winger, and that's probably his best position. We know that. We've watched him for like 3 or 4 years in those positions, and we know that. So why is it taking 12 months to go, oh yeah, he could do a job there? That for me is really, really concerning. And
can I just say that? Can I just say something very quickly? Because I feel like I've got I've kind of summarised it. I mean, he's making stuff for him like so much harder than it needs to be. He's making things so much harder, and I'm not sure why. Because you've got players like Aziz and Guinness-Walker who can get down the left wing. Even if you put Guinness-Walker down the left wing, I mean, he can provide us with something a bit different. He's just making things so difficult for himself, and he repeats mistakes as well, which is just puzzling, really.
Well, my next point was going to be about Guinness-Walker and the fact that he's basically rearranged the defence and the midfield to not accommodate the only left back or available left back that we've got at the moment, and that for me is just insane. I really, really can't understand that. I'm not expecting sort of Pep Barcelona here at all. I'm really not, and I don't want people thinking, oh yeah, we've gone really negative and stuff, because that's not the case. But it's the comments and the constant. We know where we are as a club. Like, the embargo is the embargo. We're not the only club who hasn't spent any money, and to constantly keep sort of saying, oh yeah, we're misfits, the players no one else wanted. I just think, God, if he was my boss, would I want to work for him? I probably wouldn't. And I don't understand how the players sort of keep doing it. And I think one of the positives is, for the first time in a long while, I don't blame the players on the pitch. I see a lot of effort. I see a lot of endeavour to try and do things positively. So it's a really difficult one. And I really hope that at the end of the season we're obviously safe. Maybe even before that we'll be safe, and the club go, look, thanks, Paul, really appreciate what you've done. You can leave with your head held high and off you go. And the other thing we've got to remember is obviously this might have taken its toll as well, a little bit like it did with Pauno last year. But by the time he left, he was just an absolute shell of a man, and it was probably better for his health that he wasn't managing the club. So it's going to be an interesting one to play out. And it's not being negative for negative sake, but it's just looking at the available facts. Yes, the home form has been better. That's brilliant because we've been absolutely tragic at home over the last 3 or 4 seasons. But there are certain things, as you said, that he just does, and it's like, what? Why would you make that decision? Why are you kind of almost going against the grain to just be difficult? So, yeah, it's going to be tricky moving forward to make those decisions.
You're listening to the Tilehurst End Podcast by Reading fans for Reading fans.
We're going to do a quick roundup of the club because we always like to give our listeners what's going on. The women are currently playing against Spurs in the Cup down at Leyton Orient. Last time I checked, it was 0-0. I don't think there's any movements. We are doing this obviously at sort of Sunday afternoon, so that game's still going on, but it was 0-0 at half time. The under-21s, their last game was 13th of February. They beat Beaconsfield 2-0. Interesting fixture, that one, actually, going down to Beaconsfield. I know there was quite a few fans that made the journey down as well, and by all accounts, that was a pretty good performance. They play Millwall on Monday, so that'd be interesting how to get on there. The under-18s, they last played on the 18th of Feb, and they beat QPR 1-0, so good result. But then, to be fair, most people beat QPR these days, so it's good that they were able to keep that up. They were supposed to play Bristol City yesterday. Couldn't find a score on either side, which is a bit odd. So I don't know if that game actually went ahead or if it was postponed or whatever. But their next game, regardless, is on the 4th of March, which is next week, and they're playing Charlton.
There's another huge game ahead for the Royals, so be loud and be proud for the big match preview.
With that in mind, we're going to have a little look at our weekend fixture where we head to Middlesbrough, who are, to be honest with you, Adam, absolutely resurgent under Michael Carrick. Who would have thought that a player such as him, storied career, and then getting his training, his managerial coaching training at Manchester United would have stood him in such good stead. Have you been impressed with the way that Borough have attacked the league since he's come in?
Yeah, I have been. Actually very surprised with what he's done, really. I mean, in terms of him switching to a back four, I always thought that a back five suited Borough, but he's come in, switched formation, put his stamp on the team. He's got Chuba Akpom, obviously was decent towards the end of Wilder's reign, but he's got him firing still, and that's a big positive, obviously, as number 10, which is a bit of a strange position, really, for Akpom, considering he's usually a striker, but no, I've been very impressed with what he's done. I know that he's got a lot of squad depth at his disposal and the quality of players as well, and the fact that he's been able to bring in a few of his own players in January, obviously that all counts. But no, I've been very impressed with him. And they put themselves in a good position, perhaps to be promoted. I know that perhaps automatic promotion is perhaps a little bit of a step too far maybe for them. They'll keep on challenging until the end, but obviously Sheffield United, the strength of them, it can't be underestimated. So I think they've been very good. I think they've recruited very well in terms of bringing in some young players as well, like Marcus Force, who's only going to get better. He can be sold on for a decent amount in the future. And yeah, I mean, it seems like a very steady ship at the Riverside at the moment. I know that. And obviously there was some fallings out, I think, behind the scenes between Chris Wilder and the board. But ever since Carrick has come in, it's been a very kind of steady ship. I think that everyone's now kind of pulling in the right direction. And, fair play to them because they're kind of a well-oiled machine now. They've got a good owner who understands the supporters and the local area and has been in football for a long time. So it's no surprise really that they're doing well, considering the captain who's at the wheel is kind of experienced. But Michael Carrick has done exceptionally well, considering this is his first kind of full-time head coach job. I know that he took charge of United for a couple of games, but no, he's done fantastically well, and fair play to him for that.
I mean, yeah, as you say, Akpom's on. I think he's on 19 goals, isn't he? And no one's really close to him at the moment. He's kind of way out in front there. So, yeah, they're going really well. Obviously, third in the table, 57 points, looking good potentially for automatic promotion in that second place spot. Very, very tightly packed playoff spaces at the moment. You know, there's very small gaps in between those teams that are very, very easily filled. But at the moment, they do look good to finish certainly in the top three, potentially in the top two. Last 6 games, they got 15 points. They won 5 straight until yesterday when they lost 2-0 to West Brom. I mean, in terms of the other players, obviously we talked about Akpom a little bit, but you know, what have you made of players like Archer? Maybe sort of a resurgent, you know, Johnny Howson, and obviously they've got players like Paddy McNair. You know, kind of a good group of players there. Are you quite concerned about how we're going to fare against, you know, certainly their front two or front three? You know, I think Riley McGree's kind of up there as well, isn't he? So, are you kind of looking at Saturday with a little bit of dread from a Reading point of view at the moment, Adam?
Yeah, unfortunately, and that's not because of a lack of belief in us, but because of the fact that Borough have been, you know, so fantastic. Really, you know, you look at players like Cameron Archer. He performed very well against Sheffield United in such a big game. Turned up, was actually a threat on the wing as well as through the middle, which, you know, was going to cause perhaps a few problems at the weekend. Obviously, as you mentioned, Johnny Howson, I think is a very kind of integral player. I think that the player from Rotherham's coming, isn't he, in January, that may take his place for long term. Balasa, I think his name is. And they've just got so much depth. I think that's the one thing that really scares me as well, is about, you know, just as much as the quality as the depth, and the fact that they can bring in some very kind of experienced options from the bench, not just kind of in attack, but also in terms of their defence as well. Dale Fry was on the bench, I think, you know, during their game against West Brom. It just shows you the strength of their squad. So I am a little bit scared about that. I'm not going to lie to you, but, you know, I can perhaps see this game as a little bit of a free hit. So, you know, let's go for it and see how it goes.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be very difficult for us to expect anything other than a loss there, really. But I think the concern, as I said earlier, is that those losses become, you know, they start to mount up. We've got a very, very difficult March, as I've said previously. So, you know, even if we get a point, that's a great result, and that keeps us sort of ticking over a little bit, really. If you're Paul Ince, do you look at yesterday and go, yeah, do you know what, that setup and that team selection can compete with Borough? Do you tweak it slightly? Do you change it completely? Like, what do you do this week in terms of trying to prepare the team for, you know, for what is essentially a tough game on Saturday?
Well, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because you're tempted to go with the back three again, to kind of match up with the 4-2 kind of 3-1 that they have. I think we need to focus on ourselves a little bit, because if we focus too much, overawed by the occasion, especially going to the Riverside as well, where there's a big crowd. So for us, I think it's just focusing on us and what we can do, and kind of getting ourselves kind of more assured on the ball. I think at times we look a little bit nervous on the ball, and perhaps that's because we go direct quite a bit of time. You know, sometimes I think it's about getting that mix of playing it and lofting that up, perhaps to Andy Carroll on occasions. It's about getting that balance, and if we can get that balance, then I think we'll give them an okay game. But yeah, I can't see anything other than a loss in this one, unfortunately. But hopefully they prove us wrong.
I think what's interesting is, you know, we've had injuries and you know, suspensions and stuff. And with all due respect to those players, I don't think we've missed them massively, really. I think if you look at, you know, certainly the players that started yesterday, for me, Cassidy starts again. Obviously, Meite starts. I thought Mbenge was fantastic at right back. But we know that he can put in a shift sort of anywhere along that right side, and possibly even, you know, one of the centre backs in a back three. So for me, I guess that's the positive, is we're not looking at players and going, we desperately need this person back or this player back or whatever. So it's going to be interesting to see how he sets us up for that, really. You'd expect that one of Loom or Fauna probably comes into the midfield as well, potentially. But again, I guess it depends on the system, doesn't it, really? We'll have to see how that goes. In terms of predictions, then, and this is always the worst part of it. Do you know what? I nearly got it yesterday when it was 2-0. I was like, right, leave it at that, because I've done quite well this season. I think I'm still top of the predictions league, so I'm really chuffed with that, regardless of what's going on the pitch. But in terms of your prediction for the game on Saturday, Adam, what are you saying for this?
I'm going to go with a 2-0 Borough win. Unfortunately. I'm not sure it'll be an absolute hammering. I think we'll perhaps give a good account of ourselves up there. But I can't see anything other than a loss, especially if the likes of Archer and Force are available. Subs, I think, perhaps will make a difference for them if things aren't going all their own way, and there's a chance that will happen. But we'll wait and see. But I'm not hopeful, but hopefully we'll get something from the game. But I'm going to go with a 2-0 loss. And to be fair to you, I think we've timed this just about right, because there's just under 2 minutes left to go until we've got to get off this, because there's a 40-minute limit on Zoom.
Look at that, amazing. Not only am I good at predictions, but good at timekeeping as well. I had 3-0 Borough, and I think as long as it stays under 4 for those travelling fans that are going up there, then it potentially could be seen as a good result. I don't know. Maybe we'll clutch at straws. I'm not sure. Adam, listen, thank you so much for joining me on this this Sunday afternoon. Hope you have a really good week.
No worries, mate. No, absolute pleasure. And been a pleasure being with you on the podcast again. It's been good.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for listening, everyone. I hope you have a really good week. If you're going up to Borough next week, enjoy it, stay safe, and come on, you Rs.
Why don't you break